it! Stay right there. What are you waiting for? Kill them! Kill them both! No, wait a minute. Is it money you're after? I'll give you as much as you want.
May the saints forgive you, because I won't.
Like either the staircase or the ladder at the other end of the board, is that's supposed to be like the ascension into that hidden hyperspace kingdom.
Yeah.
So like you're supposed to work your way across the board. I guess that's what it is. It's you work your way across and then you'll be elevated. But okay. Speaking of ladders and the staircase, you guys were talking about Mithras in your last show. Yeah. And you were talking about Mithras ascending the spheres, and then he conquers them and breaks through Saturn and out the egg again, I guess would be the theological interpretation or whatever you want to say about that. Mm-hmm. I wanted to go back to I forgot, I don't know, what doesn't matter. One of these podcasts that Tracy did on Rosemary's Baby and in Mac the Knife and Mickey Mouse and Disney, and like how she was like kind of incorporating all of these things together.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. Okay. Mm-hmm. What I thought was kind of interesting about that at least that video is she was talking about like Frank Sinatra and his relation to Marilyn Monroe, and the movie Rosemary's Baby was supposed to be, at least this is Tracy's theory, that it was an indictment of Frank Sinatra for his involvement with the rape of Marilyn Monroe. And Marilyn Monroe supposedly, and I'm pretty sure this is accurate, that she knew about the Kennedys. She was very closely tied to them. She knew about the mafia. She knew about the blackmail rings that the mafia was running. But what was this? The Rosemary's Baby scene where she was slipped a quote unquote Mickey and was molested on camera for blackmail by Roman Polanski. And this is supposedly why, like, this is what led to the Manson murders, where Frank Sinatra hired like the Manson girls or Manson to get back at Roman Polanski for this like supposed indictment of him.
Yeah, I think Frank Sinatra, he hated that she was in that movie because he was filming some other movie at the same time. Yep. I don't remember what it was, but
he wanted her to star in it.
Yeah, and she wouldn't, and it's probably a good thing she didn't, because like who even knows what that other movie is. But yeah, I think he gave her divorce papers on the set.
On set, yes. So what I thought was interesting that Tracy tied that to the Beatles song Helter Skelter. Okay. So she was saying that the Helter Skelter song was like supposedly talking about, well, not the Rosemary Baby part, but the Mithras descension through the spheres. Was saying that the song was about kind of that cyclical up and down, like get to the bottom, back to the top.
It's almost like Kabbalistic.
Yeah, and I almost see it as like, it's almost like you work your way to the ladder to ascend, and once you ascend, you're put right back at the bottom to restart again.
Yeah, like a Ouroboros type thing.
Yes,
that's what
exactly.
That's what I was thinking of before. And no, yeah, that's interesting. I have listened to Helter Skelter with that. I've never heard her talk about that, but it's interesting to me because I've thought similar things while listening to that song. Just because I've heard all the lore, what like with the Helter Skelter Manson, and people saying there's like the song is encoded or something. So I gave it a listen to see, and I was like, I could kind of see it.
That's kind of what I think the coding is. So I have some of the lyrics broken out here. When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide. Don't you want me to make you? As in like forming a person, I would say that is like creating something, creating a god or something.
Yeah, coming into formation.
Yes. Then coming down fast, but don't let me break you. Okay. He's putting himself as the person, and then later in the song it changes to a female. So it's she's coming down fast rather than he's coming down. So it's either they're switching characters, or that he's saying himself is hermaphroditic, which would be weird because it's third person, but it's just another idea with that. And
so that also,
I think, there's something there for sure.
Right. Sorry, Zach, go ahead.
No, you're good. I had nothing.
No, I've been thinking a lot about this hermaphroditic element at Hode, and just how, like, if you want to say that's where the lightning strike falls down, like if you're descending the tree, like Zach S was saying, you're descending, so the lightning strike's descending, and then so you're at Jupiter, okay, your lightning zap to Hode, that's where the terminal sort of, I guess, orientation of that terminal beam is. So yeah, there would be a hermaphroditic element, but then you could also consider what Zach has said before about how they're switching characters, but not just switching characters in the song. They could be switching characters in the cosmological cycle. So it could be Prince rising up, which is very Beatles, right? Very like Lennon McCartney. But then there's also like the Babalon woman. She obviously descends. So I think both of the interpretations make sense, and she would fall at Netzach. So yeah, I think it's both. The prince falls at Hode, and the woman falls at Netzach. So it's sort of that. It has a very synthetic element, and I'm not Laurel Canyon, as I think both of you know this. I'm not an expert on the Laurel Canyon material, especially compared to like Colby from Conspiracy Playtime, or KB from Thoughts and Prayers, or William Ramsey, or JJ, or they know all about that. So I'm not going to comment on that. But there's a deep connection with all the characters you're saying, with Frank, with Marilyn Monroe, with her. Jay Dyer has called her like a beta sex kitten. So
yeah, I've heard that term.
And I think that's probably true. I think that Frank Sinatra was deeply tied to at least one faction, if we want to call them like the network or the deep state or whatever. He was definitely tied
and the mafia too.
Well, yes, because it's all one thing.
Yeah, which at the time was really entrenched in the government deep state, you know.
So yeah, he was definitely entrenched with one faction, but there are many quotes of him talking about how he is very distrustful of the CIA. They tried to recruit him and he kept denying them, but he probably did work for the FBI. So this is when the factions were much more clear, like the factional lines between the agencies were much more divided. Now it's probably there's a lot more bleed over, but at least in his time, it was much more the FBI, mafia, that's one thing. And then the CIA, like these other mafia, I guess, would be another thing.
And just a callback, because you mentioned Laurel Canyon, I just wanted to put it in here because this was kind of timely, was that the fella William de Rothschild that passed away, was it earlier this week or last week? He had died on Laurel Canyon Road, I think it was. This was where his house was.
Yeah, didn't he die also with like 33 days left in the year or something.
Or it was no, it was 33 minutes before they got to or it was 33 minutes before they got there or something, before the EMS arrived or something like that. But yeah, I do remember 33 being in the article.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder how much of this is it like planned by these secret society level people, or is it just like I wouldn't even say a coincidence, but is it like a universally timed thing? I don't know, but
yeah, or I would even
too.
assert that it could just be kayfabe. It could be they're playing a gaff, playing a joke. I don't.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
because I'm not at that house. I didn't see his burnt corpse. I don't know if he actually died, but it's been reported that, so I'm gonna have to believe the sources.
There's a really interesting article on ABC7. I will put it in the chat in a moment. It is saying that he was not even a Rothschild. It is saying that his original name was William Kaufman, and that in 1985 he changed his name to William de Rothschild, and he completely cut off his family for the last 40 years, and he never said he was a Rothschild to his neighbors, but they just assumed he was. But he had this mansion and this car collection. So Monica Perez talks a lot about this idea of the constructed person, and I haven't listened a long time, but I just think it's such a fascinating idea. I'm very taken with it, like the idea that people can be living out identities as sort of replacements for the original persons or extended family of other persons.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, like something as simple as like someone has an untimely death, but their role hasn't been fulfilled yet.
Mm-hmm.
Paul McCartney.
Yeah, there you go. Something like that, where you need someone to come in and fill the role until, for like something like McCartney or something, to be like, oh, until he's put out enough hits that we could let him pass away and we could still make bank off of his royalties.
Especially the Beatles, like back then they were the biggest thing ever. Nowadays it's more democratized where, anyone can make a song and get famous, but and I think they have a bunch of intelligence connections too, so I have no doubt that they would do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that any of the guys in like the mid 60s that were doing acid, you guys probably knew somebody that was connected like that.
Definitely.
Like, I don't see how you're getting like a fresh new drug without having like very good connects.
Yeah, it's not an easy drug to make either.
Right, right. It is extremely difficult.
Where you can grow it.
Yeah, like you need a chemistry degree to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
There's no question Charles Manson and the family was obviously, I think the case has been made that it was extension of Process, Neo-Process, Process Church itself, probably both, and definitely linked to Temple of Set as well. Later on, obviously, not like right away, but yeah, I think it was all one thing originally and then kind of split off into its own thing. But he definitely was, what I'm trying to say is he definitely was Intel funded, and he was like the drug dealer for the stars, is basically.
Just looking at his arrest record shows that he had somebody on the inside.
Yeah, undeniable. I think that when you look, and the Beatles are connected to all of this. The Beatles are connected to Chatham House, connected to Tavistock, they're connected to the Fabian Society, they're connected to not just the Laurel Canyon scene, but like a lot of the cult networks. I mean, it's very interesting. And then there's this idea that Paul McCartney, I think it's Paul McCartney, that what he was. Well, JJ thinks that he was murked and then replaced, and then that's why he never really got along with the rest. Like the replacement never really fit in. There's just I'm just saying it's a conceptual idea.
It's a thought. Yeah.
There's some Beatles lyrics too, where if like at least the interpretations that I've heard, you could see what they were saying. I think it was like a day in the life, I think, is the main one. Where they're like, he blew his mind out in a car. I don't even remember the lyrics, but.
And then I think Tracy even thought that the song "Dear Prudence"
Yeah,
was supposedly like the narration of a dawning of a new age.
Yeah, it was
Like
the birth of Metis, I think.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Oh, but so one last Beatle lyric that didn't really pertain to like the Helter Skelter. I mean, it is part of Helter Skelter. It's one of the lyrics from Helter Skelter, but it doesn't really pertain to like the idea. And it might, but I thought it was an interesting line. You may be a lover, but you ain't no dancer. And it just made me think of bikinis for some reason.
Well, I think, this is a reality, is that the zucchinis are with us at all times. They're all around us. We just can't see them. They live in the red spectrum, if you want to be more, like, use a broader application of science to describe what they are. So that's even how Buddhism would understand they're just around us all the time. So there is something that when they come up in conversation, you could say it's like them. That's one idea, right? Is that it's sort of them putting into the ether that they exist and that we are acknowledging them.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So, okay. Next one I had was because you guys were talking about demon worship basically, and I was like, I'm thinking like I'm anti-demon worship, but I'm pro demon study, I guess is how I would phrase it.
I would agree.
And then I have demon AI for some reason. I don't know if you guys were talking about demon AI. I don't necessarily remember that.
I don't know if we touched on that.
I do not think we did, but I will say that it has come up a lot in like for me, like maybe something that I've talked about more broadly, that it's like AI could be interpreted. I think it was Zack CK, that came up with the idea that it's called void goblins. I don't remember if that's true, Zack. You can correct me.
I don't think I said that. Wait, well, I called them void goblins?
Void goblins. Someone did.
Yeah, that I don't think that was me.
Okay, well, I apologize, but someone did, and so I kind of do think AI is that, but then I also think maybe, well, it's not that I'm not a techno pessimist per se, although I'm definitely more on that side, but I do think that there might be possibility of something more. It just is like, who's developing the technology? What are they developing it for? And is it, like AI is sort of bullshit in a way, because it's like it's functional, but then there's also something like extraordinarily shitty about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty pro AI, I think, in general. I do see there are dangers, obviously, behind who's programming it. And I think the discussion about AI and whether, I wouldn't call it all demonic, but whether it could form its own consciousness and become, I don't know, what you could call a demon or an angel, whatever. I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty pro technology, but I'm also, how could I say it nicely? I feel like that AI is a wonderful tool that maybe 1 or 2% of people actually know how to use responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I'm at with it, where I'm like, yeah, this is a great tool, but there are, hundreds, thousands of drawbacks to unleashing this technology before the population is prepared for it, I think.
Yeah. I could see it also. I don't know if you guys know who Jason Giorgiani is. I think we've talked about him, Jim, but
yes,
I do not.
He kind of has a Nietzschean understanding of it, where he thinks like, of course, most people that use technology, it will probably like be the end of them. They'll just become completely mindless and constantly entertained. But then there'll be a small subsection of people who sort of, I don't know, like merge with it, I guess, and use it to advance us beyond like anything we possibly know now. So I don't know. It's basically what Nietzsche was talking about, where he's like the Ubermensch, the evolution of the Ubermensch, while the vast majority of people are basically just going to become robots.
I would. I mean, I've probably brought this book up to a dozen people at this rate, but I'm trying to get people to read that Henry Kissinger book with, I forgot who it was. There's another guy. Oh, I have it right here. Daniel Houghtonlock or whatever, but the book is titled The Age of AI. And Kissinger and this guy go very into it and basically is setting up that exact framework where you were saying like the Übermensch and the Undermensch or whatever the hell the other one is.
Yeah.
Where like you're setting up these two, like the technologists and the engineers that understand the AI and can program it and can use it correctly, and then the kind of like the lumpen masses that are uneducated and are just going to be manipulated by it.
Yeah, well, I think he views it as like not Kissinger, but Giorgiani and possibly Nietzsche, if you could talk to him a day, but as like an evolutionary mechanism almost, where, in evolutionary theory, the population mutates and the vast majority of them don't adapt and either die off or, I don't know, I guess die off. And yeah.
Well, I mean, it could go both ways, though. That's kind of how I would see that, is like the new population that is the quote unquote evolved population. That population could also die off if they're doing bad experiments, I guess.
Especially if there's people like, what was it, like Ray Kurzweil, you know who that is? Those type of people that are complete like materialist, like reductionalist materialist. I don't know what the term is. I forgot.
Yeah, no, I know what you're getting at.
Yeah, but that's kind of like a dystopian version of transhumanism, I guess. Whereas I don't think that's the only way that we could possibly combine ourselves with technology.
Yeah, and I also see it as like they're setting up the same framework. Both, the pro and the negatives are both setting up a similar framework where they want to, like, how could I say it? It could be like dystopian or what the hell's the other one? Utopian? Yeah, they're like setting up the same framework, but like depending on how you view it, like if you view yourself as better than others, you would see this as a utopia. But if you see yourself as equal with others, you would see it as a dystopia. And I think that's really where the breakdown comes in.
You're saying if you have like a socialistic attitude?
If you have like a socialistic attitude, you could take it both ways. Basically, you could take it as like I'm this so well-informed, high-minded liberal that I understand that we need to move towards communism. So all of you other R words over here that don't agree with me, you're lesser than me. But then you could also do the same thing as like from those same lefties. They'd be like, oh no, we're all equal, and this is a dystopian vision. But see, like,
it does depend on the perception.
Yes,
yeah.
and
there definitely are.
The political framework doesn't even matter, kind of.
Yeah.
Is kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I personally find Giorgiani really interesting, even though I don't agree with him on a lot of things. But I think that I'm friendly, and I'm trying to get him on the show.
He did say he just got back into his email or something, so we missed a bunch of podcast invites. So
okay, which is what I actually was doing somewhat today when I had a moment to email people. Anyways, no, but I think that we should actually move into the idea of the hyperspace kingdom, which Zack CK brought up at I think even pre-recording, but maybe even a little at the beginning, because I think it's really interesting in context to Genuflect. And to what you're talking about, just like this sort of like futuristic, like where are we going? Where is the Aeon taking us? Where are we moving, and what role does technology play in it? And also fiction, because I think that's what a lot of what Genuflect is, a kind of parafiction that contains the truth in the narrative, but that is both magical, that is also semi-fictional, but is also partly the truth. Like there's elements of the truth in the narrative.
The thing I appreciate too about Genuflect is it's not too subtle with the esoteric Like she explains a lot of it.
Yeah, she does explain a lot of it.
Yeah, which helps. But yeah, we can get into the hidden hyperspace. I don't know if you want to introduce it, Zach, or...
I mean, you're probably better at introducing it because I don't have any notes on it.
Okay. I have some. They're messy. But I guess the main idea, through her interpretations of Masonic tracing boards, which we can get into the details of that later, but the overall idea is that you could travel, and she thinks it's at the North Pole most likely, and then you can go beyond it, and there is like a hidden territory that has some kind of higher dimensional level to it, which it's basically like Tomorrowland or Atlas Shrugged, where these elites or these higher level beings, they go and they live in their perfect little utopia without the average person, the average idiot, like from their view around, and they have like higher technology, and that's basically the idea. But she also said that she thinks like that higher dimensional aspect to it, she thinks that if you manipulated light in a certain way, or through some kind of technology, that's the only way you would be able to see it.
Yeah, I just recently watched the Tomorrowland movie, the Disney one, because I mean, I did prior to Tracy. For one, it's a Disney movie. How has it not been heard of? Like, how has it not been like
and the
stuff?
society in there is called Plus Ultra too.
Yeah, exactly. That's the more or less what I was kind of bringing it up is like the hidden hyperspace kingdom in that movie is very similar to the way that Tracy was setting up. It's like it exists in the same reality, but you don't have the perception of it at that moment. Like until you, I forgot how it was in the movie, like got like a little ball or something or whatever that like you're holding on.
Yeah, it was like an invitation.
Yeah, and then you could see these kingdoms, but like when the main character goes out to the middle of nowhere and doesn't have the ball, like, or isn't holding the ball or something, it's just like a big empty grass field.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they touches it, it's this huge metropolis that's like booming, and there's flying cars and all this crazy technology. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see. I kind of see what they're getting at here. It's like they're kind of talking about kingdoms that exist in our reality that you don't even see without the proper invitation.
Yeah.
Like I would think of something like I guess Dubai would be a good idea of that, where it's like nobody's really getting in there unless you're on the approved list. And once you get there, oh, it's this huge bustling city in the middle of the desert that like normally this would just be a big empty desert, but oh, whoa, here's this crazy.
Well, it's basically a breakaway civilization.
Yeah, exactly.
And she was pretty dependent on like I don't want to say flat Earth model to prove this, but the idea is that there are a ton of hidden territories with vast resources, and we're just not allowed to go into that territory. So she usually, I think she was promoting like a flat Earth model at the time, especially with the North Pole being at the center. But that's the same thing with like Black Rock, Rupus Nigra. Like that is that hyperspace kingdom, apparently, like the mountain of the gods.
And I would even you could even lump in like Antarctica.
Yeah, Antarctica
like
too.
That's another one of those ones that's like super controlled by military. You're only getting in with an invitation.
Yeah, you'll get your head blown off if you walk over there.
Right.
I want to just say, in a magical way, I think that what Tracy's saying you can take in in the way that you guys both are talking about, like that it's an actual logistical kingdom. But then there's this other idea that I could see, even bringing up what Zack said about the dakinis. It's like they're there, but it's in the magical experience. It's in the experience of the snakes and ladders. Because snakes and ladders they're from tantra. I mean, they're from Jain tantras. So then they were borrowed into like English board games. I always found that very fascinating, that you have this very tantric idea of grids and nagas, and it's all built into what Snakes and Ladders is. But it's also like a conceptual model of reality. And so maybe that is also what the hyperspace kingdoms are. Maybe they are an experiential, like how everybody on Twitter talks about like the mind palace. And like in my naivete, I thought that that's a super secret tantric thing that only we talk about. But clearly it is something that everybody who's of a certain age, like a Zoomer, seems to know about. So I think that there's also, like, I'm totally open to both things. I'm not saying my way is the only way to understand it, but I do think that there is a metaphysical reality that's very real, that what she is talking about. And I will also point out that not that either of you are this nerdy, but the White Wolf games of the Mage, I think it's Mage the Awakening. Anyways, whatever the first one was, not the second iteration, they actually talk about this exact thing. They talk about this exact thing about how there are hidden pockets of reality controlled by mages who've made it past the 7th density of reality. But it still exists on our plane. It's just that we cannot interact with it unless we are into space.
The way I've been kind of thinking about it, and I think it's sort of the way Tracy thought about it as well, is there is like a degree of physicality to the place. Like you don't have to die and go there necessarily, but you do need to, I don't know if it's like you need to higher your vibration, or if it's only possible to access during certain astrological times or through certain technology. But it does seem to be like if just a layman walked over there, I don't think they would be able to see it. Was kind of her idea, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I would say like I don't think that I don't discount either of them. Honestly, I think it's probably like a both kind of thing where like, yeah, there is this metaphysical, mystical place, but there's also a physical place. And they're kind of weaving them back and forth between each other so that you don't figure out either of them. So you don't figure out this mystical spiritual place, and you also don't figure out that there's an actual material place of the same.
Yeah, I think it's probably just kind of like a deeper level into the matrix that we live in. I didn't want to say that word matrix, but
it's okay.
Yeah.
But like
we got it.
At least my conception of when people use like DMT or something like that, I feel like our brain is sort of a filter that tunes us into this place. And then you do something like that, or you go through deep meditation, like, and
it's almost like a radio receiver.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's like an antenna, but our brain has certain filters, or else if we saw everything that was going around us, we'd go
It'd just
nuts.
be all noise.
Yeah, and from an evolutionary perspective, it makes sense too, because you couldn't be focused on getting berries in the woods or whatever, if you're seeing elves or whatever the hell people see. But I don't know.
I was laughing the whole time when Zack was talking about like it's the both and. That's exactly what that's how I think of it, right? That's me being very non-dual. Like it's both and. It is the parafiction in the macrocosm. Like it is the parafiction that you can touch. It's not really real, but it's also real and it's also not real. It's like it's all the things at the same time. So I'm okay with it being a physical place or like a metaphysical place. It's either or for me.
I think it's both.
Yeah, and I'm not like putting any chips down on that it's both. That's how I feel about it,
No, but I think it was really interesting how you both dealt with it like very conceptually and sort of took and not opposing, but there's like that slight, I don't know, like you had a stronger opinion on one end, but I think you're both right. So that's what is interesting. It's like it doesn't really matter, because I think that there is a place to interact with, and how you get there. Maybe this is how I would think of it, is that this is part of the reason why you could say social media and pop culture or like mediatic culture is so illuminating, because it is intended to prepare us to experience those other levels of reality, whether that is metaphysical or physical.
And I would just say that, like, regardless of it being metaphysical or physical, the narrative is still the same.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's kind of what I try to. That's what I kind of what I'm trying to stick with is what we do know, what we can actually like put down on paper that is factual. I'm like, well, it's either there's a real place or there's not. Like that, it doesn't necessarily matter to me. Both of them they're both building up to the same thing. Like they're both using the same mechanisms and techniques to tell the same story. So it's kind of like unnecessary even to like try to claim that it's one or the other.
I feel the same way too about whether it's at the North Pole or if it's, underground in a Gartha or Shambhala or whatever. So,
well, first I'll say something about Shambhala. So the Theosophists totally misunderstood what Shambhala is. I don't necessarily think I'm correcting the record, but I think I should just make a statement on it. Is that so? There is a place called Zandok-Paltry, which is called the Copper-Colored Mountain. I'm sure Zack S is like, I'm sure both of you are like, oh, Copper-Colored Mountain. That's really interesting from an alchemical perspective, because copper is
Googling it now.
Right, copper is required in the synthesis of gold. So it's actually fundamental. So I think that there's an idea that it's like inner outer secret, like it exists at 3 different layers of reality. One is a metaphysical reality, as we said. One's a conscious layer of reality, so it's a level of consciousness, but you could also say that's biological. And then you could also say that there is an alchemical idea of reality where you have to do the process, however you understand that to mean. You have to do a scientific, maybe a wisdom scientific process, but you have to, some way you have to achieve the work through that. Like where you're going, your destination has to be achieved through the working. So I think that it's really interesting that they conceived of it solely as a sort of secret zone in the Himalayas, just floating there. And yes, that's sometimes how it's described, but it's more than that. It's like also a place you can go with your mind. So I just want to say that. But okay, so I want to ask you both, what is your preferred, I won't even give it a label, but what is your preferred cosmology for the world? Like, is it round Earth, flat Earth? I'm a realm Earth, so it doesn't really, I'm being very non-dual. It doesn't really matter for me. I'm fine either way.
I just want to be weird and different, and I would say it's toroidal.
I like that too.
Yeah, I would say it's probably a realm Earth too, but that's kind of also within that paradigm. I just don't know where I would place it. I don't know. It's impossible for me to know, and I feel like it is such a fundamental question because,
that's how I feel about it. Is like, for one, I'll entertain the ideas. I'll entertain all of them, but what it really comes down to me is like, how does this actually change my life? Like if I'm thinking about this is like, oh, like the world is flat or the world is round. What really changes for me?
I think it would change a lot of my beliefs, because if it was flat and there are these like 7 spheres of heaven and we're kind of stuck within this, then I would have a much more like kind of like a Gnostic, like a negative Gnostic view of the world, where I'm trapped and I'd be constantly trying to, I don't know, it would also make astrology make a lot more sense to me, because if these planets are actually beings, they're gods or
like
archons
entities,
whatever, then it would make complete sense why they have such an effect. But I mean, I could also explain astrology with a round Earth theory too, but
what it would really change for me if, like, well, tomorrow, okay, everyone's saying the Earth is flat now the Earth is flat, now we all believe the Earth is flat. The thing that would change for me is that either we've been lied to for X amount of years, or we've now reached some sort of level of consciousness that this is now like the preferred thought. Like it it'd be like one of those like it would be a society breaking moment, quite literally. Like everything would fall apart. Like nobody would. I don't know. I think it would start to put time into question. It would make me put time into question. Be like, oh, is the sun actually going around 365 for 24 hours, 365 a year? Like, is that actually the time schedule, or is this timing different? Is this all just controlled by some gods? I'm like, yeah, you can go down that route, and I think it's probably interesting, and you could probably get a lot of like good thought out of it, like good like word problems out of it. But it just like makes me it just feels like it's pushing in a direction that we don't need to push in. Like, at least that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. It doesn't keep me up at night, but it would help me to finalize some of my views, I think. Definitely.
Yeah, see, none of my views are final. I don't think I'm ever going to have like
not finalized, but a little more.
Yeah. But I just tried not to like draw any conclusions with anything, because tomorrow's a different day. Tomorrow something could change that completely turns that idea upside down. So I'm always just constantly questioning myself, making sure that I'm not being a complete idiot, or if I am being an idiot, I'm at least like inspecting my idiocy.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that the vast majority of like these flat earthers, they're like 70 IQ Christians that have
that are just doing it for like contradictory purposes. Like they just want to contradict people.
They have an insane view of the world, whereas like at least Tracy was using it as like she had a more Gnostic worldview.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
With it.
This is the thing, Zach. This is for Zach CK, but obviously also for Zach S. But so I recognize that I'm a Gnostic in the sense that like Vajrayana is a Gnostic, and we have this whole story, like the consort falls down, we rectify it, she falls down, we rectify it. Okay. So the idea of Gnosticism doesn't really bother me. I know James Lindsay's back on the timeline, which I find because Zach S and I spoke about him. I think even you and I, Zach, spoke about him in our first episode that we ever did.
I'm trying to. Who is it? I'm just hilarious right now.
James Lindsay, the super anti-communist, but loves Israel, and somehow it makes sense.
Oh, I see him. Yeah, I've recognized.
So he talks about Gnosticism, and this is the thing,
as like a heresy,
as like the great devil, the great evil,
the great evil. But he's not even Christian. So this is the really interesting thing. He's not 100% wrong, because there's such a variation in what Gnostic thought really is.
Yeah,
this. I'm not reality negative, because reality is just one level of perception. I treat all reality as very conceptual, especially lately. So it doesn't matter to me really what kind of world we live on fundamentally. It's not going to change like my day-to-day worldview. But perhaps that if we treat like both our minds and then some of the, what we say, external deities, or those people who maybe control the seven spheres, the aethers, or whatever you want to call them. I've been doing a series on Book of Enoch, so you can obviously tell that's on my mind. And so I think it doesn't matter, because we treat all of that as somewhat archonic anyway. Like we already recognize all those forces as archonic. It doesn't really.
Yeah, you don't need to be a Gnostic.
Yeah, I would kind of say that what James Lindsay does is like he kind of groups all Gnostics under like the Ophite Gnostics, like specifically the Ophite Gnostics.
Yes, that's a really good point, because he really does do that. Like he's talking about something fundamentally real. He might even be talking about something fundamentally real with the transgender stuff. But it's there's a logical fallacy in it, because not all Gnosticism is dualistic, because clearly tantra is very anti-dualistic. Dualism is considered.
I would, as far as Buddhism and Gnosticism go, I would say, I think like the Orthodox Theravada Buddhism would be more Gnostic in the way that I'm thinking of it, where it's like the end goal is to escape,
Yeah.
kind of.
Exactly.
And it is more dualistic, whereas most Gnosticism is very dualistic. There's like this material world, there's the spiritual world, there's good, there's evil. Like the rulers of this world are evil, and the point is to escape.
So I just wanted to say that like how I would try to like phrase it is there's a bunch of different sects of Gnosticism where their main belief is that there are these archons, they're evil, they're trapping us in here, and then all of these different sects of Gnosticism will have their own different rituals to try to overthrow those archons. So like they might have the right premise that like I say right premise, but like you know what I'm saying. Like they might have the right premise in like there are these archons, they are controlling us, they are keeping us trapped here, but they're going about their escape in different manners. Like they're going through it in different ways, and that's where I would say like the O-fights are probably like the most obvious ones that are that are like taking basically like satanic thought of like I don't know like 50 60 years ago, but like doing it fucking effing like however many years ago, like in the 1300s. Like they're inverting Christianity and inverting all of Christianity's rituals.
Well, their method of escape was basically to do the most vile acts they could think of to offend God in order to collapse this world.
Exactly.
Whereas Buddhism is basically to like through all your lives you built up this identity, and it's to like slowly don't identify with any of it until you just kind of fade out, you know.
You have to do it through virtue, so let me just say that. But yes, definitely what both of you are saying is true, is that you can, but even that's how left hand path magic can be. It can be very transgressive simply for the sake of transgression. Because it's really a ritual methodology, right? Like that's really what it's for. It's for remixing temple grammar for magic. But when you just remix it in a way that's just purely transgressive against God, you're trying to weight the wheel on one side so far, you know, to obviously break the world. There's even that Puranic idea that once you weight the world in sin, it tips on the turtle's back. It kind of, the eggshell, it's a half an eggshell, so it tips over and spills out. And so I think definitely that's an idea of like what some Gnostic groups are trying to do, or what these like neo-process people are trying to do. I prefer the middle pillar approach. That's just me. I have no problem with either left-hand path or right-hand path. Certain things are, I would consider clearly immoral and clearly wrong view. But there's ideas in both that I think are interesting. Now, I don't want to necessarily be weighted on either side. I try and be more middle pillar. But I think there's also the idea that you can use both hands, and I love that personally. And I love that you can also find through the interaction with both pillars the balance and synthesis in between. So using both actually culminates in a synthesis. So I think that's interesting as well.
Well, my conception, I guess I understand both like meanings behind the term, but my conception of the left-hand path, or what I've researched at least, is that it was originally like the Vama Marga, Vamachara, where it's like the Indian tantras, you know, the Aghoris and stuff like that. And like the left hand is supposed to basically elevate the feminine principle, where it's, you know, it's like Shakti worship or Kali, whereas like the modern day conception of left hand path is like, you know, demon worshiping and hexing and cursing.
Absolutely.
That's how I had first heard of it. Was the left hand was the female, the right hand was the male. And in order to have like a, you know, a whole practitioner, you need to incorporate both of these, the masculine and the feminine of your personality. They both need to be incorporated in. And I think that's kind of where a lot of the social strife comes from, is like people that don't have, like a male that doesn't have their feminine incorporated, or a female that doesn't have their masculine incorporated.
Yeah, it's the left brain, right brain.
Yes, bingo.
Yeah,
bingo.
You're supposed to balance them out, but Most are not.
So this is, yeah, so what you both said was really important. It's like you have to differentiate Vamacharya. So Vamacharya literally means left-hand path. And so, yeah, you have to differentiate that from Abhacharya, which is black magic. So those are actually two very different things. Vamacharya is the path 4 through 7. So once you get to the 4th density or the 4th marga of Tantra, you then can partake in the left-hand path. Most people don't even get there. So you've worked all this time doing other kinds of right-handed or Dakshinacharya Tantra. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine for most people.
Yeah,
So
and from what I understand about specifically the Agori sect is they live a somewhat like ascetic lifestyle. They live away from society. It's not like how you would think left-hand path, a modern Wiccan, doing whatever they do, sacrifice chickens or whatever.
No, you're totally right, Zack, is because, well, this is how so Agoris generally practice, if they practice Tantra, they practice the Bhairava Tantras. So the Tantras that focus on the ferocious forms of the Time King and Shiva, obviously. But it's a form of
They're slaves of Shiva, they call themselves.
Yes. So the way they maneuver through the paths or through the tree, if you want to call it that, is they use radical shramana, so radical asceticism, just as you said, living on the carnal ground, living outside of society. But there's even a thing where they break their wangs with rocks, because it's like a radical rejection of the material condition. But then they use the left-handed methods that may or may not include sacrifice, and usually for Agoris it doesn't. It's because they already live on the smashana, so it doesn't. It's already there. It's all there for them. So, but they use the shramana to sort of balance out, because asceticism is very much a right-handed path practice. And you can even see in Pico della Mirandola, when he's talking about Christian Kabbalah, he even offers this idea that this kind of more Catholic asceticism is like an overbearance on the right-hand path.
Well, it definitely is, because even left like Frank Sinatra, his last name just means left, and that's the sin. It's associated with left, and it's kind of always been that way. I forgot.
It's funny that we brought that up earlier too.
It means left sin. I don't know, in Latin, or I don't remember what language.
I think that's Latin. Really important is like how much, like you cannot just do left-hand practices because you want stuff. That would make it black magic. When you're using it for theurgy or to realize God, and I'm using God in the more Eastern Dharmic way, where it's like monistic, sort of, at least for Hinduism, right? So you're using it to realize God by refining the ritual methodologies. You're literally burning them away by doing the practices on the carnal ground. That's the whole idea, is that the words also burn any klipa or any skanda, any kind of aggregation that's come into contact by people misusing the seed syllables. It burns it away like the skin of the body. So it purifies it. So then when the priest goes into the normative temple, it actually cleans it. The word is considered to be clean. So it requires both kinds of people, both kinds of rituals working in concert at the same time to produce both normative and more magical results. I think that's a really interesting idea that people really forget about with Tantra. And sorry, I won't go on a Tantra thing, but I think that's a non-dual, an interesting non-dual thing, is that both have to exist. But the individual practitioners on their, like, so Zack, you brought up the Agoris. Again, the Agoris do radical shramana. That's the way they balance out the left-handed practices. They balance very right-handed lifestyle. So you cannot, it's the idea is that you cannot just partake in both. Like, you can't be all left-hand path all the time. It has to be balanced out in some way. Otherwise, you will overbear the world with sin, but also your own karma will be overburdened.
Yeah, that's just what I've heard, is that like the tantric, whether it's the Vamachara or even Vajrayana, that people call that, just that whole practice, the left-hand path. I've heard that too. It's just hard to know what people mean when they say.
Okay, Vamacharya. So Vamacharya is the left-hand path. Yes, many practices in Vajrayana are Vamacharya, but a lot aren't. So you have both, and it depends on it's a skill level. It's a skill condition. So they would call it a karmic condition. Like, do you have the ability to meet a teacher who can give you a practice that's going to be spiritually progressive in terms of, like, is it going to work? Are you going to be able to have not just material benefit, but yes, also that, but also spiritual benefit, maybe even magical experiences? So most people don't have the karmic conditions. That's the thinking. I'm not saying that they don't. I'm saying this is the thinking. And for Kali Yuga to receive like a beneficial teaching that still works.
Yeah.
But some people will have it, and usually they are left-hand path practices, if only because those were considered for Kali Yuga more ritually potent. But it doesn't really, if we're talking about this idea of like AI futurism or like this kind of tech, maybe utopianism, I'm not saying any of us are saying that, but we're kind of engaging with the idea. I don't think it matters anymore, because I think well, at least I'm thinking about how we're moving into a new aeon is sort of my idea. Not just me, obviously other people are thinking it too, but I'm just saying that if we take that as a conceptual idea, whether you agree with it or not, it doesn't matter so much anymore about the left-hand practices, because they have to also sort of be remixed in their own way, because they also get degraded. They also get degraded when the institutional religion becomes itself degraded. So it happens when in dualism, both seeds or both maybe practices of refining the seeds degrade faster. And so the sort of greater whole has to also be unified when you move yugas, and it also has to be you sort of can discard what doesn't work anymore. So in my opinion, I think the left-hand path it's just not as viable as it used to be.
Yeah. I mean, I've tried seeking out places, and I went to this one place. I don't know if I told you this before, but it was they said they have like initiations and stuff like that, but I just went to one of their church services just to talk to the people, and it was just not it was just like a bunch of white rich liberals with no shoes on and talking very like new agey, and I was like, this does not seem like, I don't know.
No, well, yeah, no, I told.
So I can see how it's been degraded for sure.
Yeah, that's a lot of modern dharma. That's like something I often discuss with like my other, we're kind of sort of like we're the offshoot of, there used to be this podcast called the Right Wing Dharma Squad, and so kind of we have an offshoot of that. It's a bunch of us, like 24 of us or whatever, of different levels of practitioners. But yeah, we talk a lot about this, how it's like the modern dharma scene, especially in the West, is very degraded, which is interesting because it is also the fastest growing religion in all of Asia and Russia. So there's something really interesting about that it's like seemingly not degraded in those parts, and people are talking and dialoguing.
Yeah.
But then in the West, we are seeing a lot of our institutions very decayed. And Dharma is very new, right? Especially even Vajrayana. It's only been in the West for like 40 years, since the 60s.
And
so
Western secularism just tends to, I don't know, it just tends to degrade everything. It ruins everything.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's like you don't the spirit of something, or that things even have a spirit. I think you degrade things for sure.
It drains the spirit. That's what the secularism does. It kind of pulls all the spirit out of it.
Oh yeah, 100%. I agree with this. There's your consciousness. Okay, I don't want to go too far, but your consciousness, the way it understands the world, creates klipas or skandhas in the way it perceives things, but that's not inherently negative, but it's your application of like a value judgment, like, is this good or bad? So if you're like more Calvinistic and you're like, oh, everything is so degraded and anything that's matter is degraded, then that's going to be more of how reality manifests for you. That would be a very tantric view, is that reality manifests according to your own worldview. Anyways, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off on that tangent. We will go back to Genuflect.
Well, I just want to. We can even piggyback off of what you were saying to kind of tie it back to Genuflect, because Genuflect was pretty much all about like the dawning of a new one. It's the old Aeon collapsing, being supplanted by a new Aeon, which is pretty much exactly what we were just talking about. Like, there's this, like, obviously you could say the Kali Yuga kind of. That's a good analogy for it, but I would even go like what Tracy would say is like, look at the Greek and Roman gods, and then up until when what year are we in right now? 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Right? 2024. Where are we getting that year from? It's from the birth of Jesus.
Yeah.
So that was like the old turning, where it was turning from the old gods to the new god, which was Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're kind of in this middle stage where we're setting up the next one, and we're about to collapse and then bring a new one up.
Well, yeah, I think she talked about, she like, where was I going with this? I don't know. I just blanked out. I'm sorry.
Okay, so
you're good. You're good.
Let me just add this, and then Zach, yes, you can go. Is that so in Buddhism, we know it's the fourth turning because it's very easy to count it. The Theravada materials that Zach CK brought up at the very beginning, those say that the Pali Suttas say it is the first turning. Buddha was the first wheel turner. He was the first Chakravartin. Then you have the Mahayana Sutras. Those say that they represent the teachings for the second turning. Tantra says they are the teachings for the third turning. So whether you call it turning or temple, I think that's kind of interesting. A lot of other religions and traditions believe that we are entering the fourth turning. So I think we know this from Brzezinski, like fourth industrial revolution, or even with the 5G, because 4 and 5, Chesed and Kabbalah always have to be in a kind of dialectical synthesis to work. That's how both of those, the fire and the water, they have to sort of meet in the middle in order to function. That's the only way they really function. I think that there is something there that like it's bringing in that sort of the fifth element, which is consciousness, which is the mind, which is sort of the perception, the realization that things exist outside of yourself. That phenomena exists, but it's also what we would call it empty, obviously, in Buddhism. But I don't expect other people to say that.
All right, I remember what I was gonna say now.
Get it.
So how you brought up that the birth of Jesus is basically year one. I remember Tracy talking about how that kind of denotes that we're living in a solar age. And this also goes back to kind of what we were talking about with like the cosmos, flat earth, round earth. She said maybe a symptom of this solar age is that we believe that we live in like a heliocentric cosmos.
Yes. Yeah, I remember her talking about that.
I think that's interesting.
I just wanted, because I was this other book I was reading, the secret architecture of our nation's capital by David Oveson. He was talking about how on like Masonic lodges they will have, like, instead of it being like this lodge was founded in like 16 something something or 17 something something, they'll add I think is it 4,000 or 2,000 years to it? I can't find it in here real quick, but that's kind of what I'm kind of trying to get at with that is like, it's almost like the Masons are like trying to incorporate the old age into their lodge by saying that like, oh, we're from 4024 instead of, we're in 4024 instead of 2024.
Well, I think that there's definitely, so most esoterica prefers the lunar calendar. Both of you know this. Both of you are like, I would consider like relatively advanced as esoteric students. Advanced, not relatively advanced, but at least intermediate. So
I don't know. I'm kind of retarded.
Yeah,
well, I am too. But I think that we've spoken privately enough that I have a good sense of where you both are at. So in that way. So yeah, I think the lunar stuff is that's the secret calendar. That's like the esoteric calendar. And so I agree with Tracy that we are living in a solar age. I'm a geocentric person. It doesn't really matter to me. As I said, I can treat it conceptually, but on this one point, I'm very stalwart, you could say. Like, I really do believe in a geocentric model. I think that because the Malkuth is us, and so the universe really does revolve around us, but it can also be the one, because 0 is just a placeholder number. It has it's like a negative value until it's filled. And so you can say that 10 is the 1, and just as Kether can also be the 10, it depends if you're counting upwards or downwards. So I think there's something really interesting with that. And also, yeah, I think that's true. I think that what Tracy was saying is true. We live in a seemingly solar age, a very like Tiferatic age where there is this kind of exterior, you could say superficial illuminism through science, through like institutional science anyway. And like that's how people believe that they understand the world, but that's not really that's not the esoterica. That's just like what people see. It's like the single layer reality, like 1D. But yeah, so, and I think there's a unification that has to happen too. Like it can't, I don't know if we'll ever move away from like a completely non-solar calendar. I don't even know if that's desirable. But there pretty much has to be some kind of synthesis with the lunar calendar. I think
I'd like a lunar calendar. I think it makes more sense, right? It's like 13 months, and then every month has the same 28 days. I think.
I'm not. Yeah. I think what they're trying to do right now is like the merging of the East and the West, and that's kind of like symbolized with like the merging of the sun and the moon. Like they're trying to push these two together to form one, like overarching thing. And that's I'm trying to get to the God. I can't find the year because I want to make sure that it's 2000 or 4000. But the point is that they're in their framework, in the Masons framework. Like our timeline didn't start in 2024, or it didn't start in 01. It started 2000 years, 4000 years before that. So they're incorporating all of the Egyptian stuff. They're incorporating all the Roman stuff, all the Greek stuff, all of the, I mean, I guess technically, yeah, they would be like incorporating like the Protestant stuff into it. Like they're lumping them all in, and they're just trying to keep them all under one time frame.
So I think I actually have a reaction to this, is that I agree with you. And actually, I'm very radical on this position. I think maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm not. But in my mind, I am, because I think that, yeah, I think that's true. And I think that 1 AD, like, yes, maybe you could push it back, say 500 BCE, maybe even 1000 BCE. I'm more like, let's just go with it. Like, if we are reset at 1 AD, let's just go with it. Let's just say
that's how I'm at.
Our demarcation. We don't really know what came before. Yeah, we know a little bit, but we don't really understand. And so let's just move with that knowledge forward, instead of like we was kanging, like who is like the foundational civilization. Like, I don't think it matters. I think it always points to the same sort of Central Asian or Iranian position anyway. So I don't think it really matters.
Yeah. Indo-Iranian.
Exactly. Indo-Aryan. Yeah.
And I would even say, like, who's to say that there was just one point? There could be multiple different points, and that could even give more credence to like local gods. Like, oh, maybe these gods bestowed this land to this race, these gods bestowed this land to this race, and then let them all run free. That would be like a more like metaphysical idea, like trying to take yourself out of the material and like evolution and all that stuff. But like all of these things could be used as like an analogy for culture.
Well, there has been at least one reset, right? Like the flood myth. That's
the greater Dryas one or whatever.
Yeah. So yeah.
What's his name? Carl. What's the guy's name? Something. Carl.
Talking about
the guy that went on Rogan.
Vajra, and he's like, Vajra energy. It's like the new thing. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Graham Hancock.
He's friends with him.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. He's also
No, not Greg.
I really can't remember, but I will remember.
I can't remember it either.
Myself after. Anyways, the point is, so I agree that there's been a flood myth, and this is even talked about in like Yetziratic astrology, is that there will always be destruction by fire or water. I think this also appears in Revelations, and so yeah, I think it depends, and so I think that there's clearly like Zach, you were saying something interesting about how the local gods bestowed lands people. Well, there is an idea, even I've met an Israeli who believes this, and I'm not throwing them under the bus because, as you both know, I'm much more neutral on the question than most people, in the sense that like I don't really care is my opinion. So but I have met an Israeli who believes that God is that God, like the Israeli sort of like the Hebrew God, you could say, is not necessarily like the heavenly Father, but he bestowed the like whatever the genus loci is, bestowed like the God of that land or that territory, bestowed it to Hebrew people. So I think there is something interesting about that. Like the Romans were very interested in the genus loci too. And that cult was very prominent in the Roman imperial cult, maybe only second to the ancestors. So I think there's something to that, like the sort of the it's very anime idea that the kami that exist of the land, like the land god, like you have to get their permission in order to sort of settle there, live there. There's something really interesting about this. There's something, instead of having it just be all above you.
Yeah, it's almost it's a good narrative builder.
Yeah, 100%. Good narrative builder.
So I don't know if you guys want to get into like the actual.
Yeah, let's get into it.
The actual ritual of Genuflect, at least.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Because Tracy said this is a common theme that she found in multiple different works. I guess the most known would be The Holy Mountain, the film by, what's his last name? Jodorowsky. I can't pronounce it, but
I think that's close.
And the writings of John Dee. I forgot which one specifically, and it's also in The Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz. But the essential idea is tempting each of the planetary archons, so like the main 7 gods, to incarnate into human form, usually through, it depends on each god, I guess. But
yeah,
usually,
you need to entice them with different things.
Yeah, you entice them with sex usually. You get them to come down, incarnate into human form because they just can't resist the sex. And then you kind of, they're there. They can be your bitch, basically. You can do whatever you want to them. And so if you do this with each one of the archons, you can, I guess, kill them and like mash them up into a very, I don't know, the whole alchemical process, but you can turn them into the birth of a new universe, which would destroy this universe, and you would become the god of the universe that you create, basically overthrowing the heavens. And she mentioned that this was something that Aleister Crowley was trying to do, basically. She noticed it was a very common theme. And I think the Knights Templar were trying to do the same thing. They were trying to destroy the world. I don't think it was probably through this exact ritual, but.
And just to piggyback off of Aleister Crowley referred to Baphomet as Father Mithras.
Yeah. Yep.
So I just thought that was interesting, and it ties in.
Yeah, if you use the, what is it, the Atbash cipher? No, that's Sophia. Never mind.
Yeah, that's Sophia. Yeah.
But yeah, I think there is commonality in there too, because Baphomet is kind of a god of the contracts, which Mithras is as well.
Yeah, Mithras is definitely a contractual, at least in our understanding, like more Buddhist or like Western, later Zoroastrianism. For sure, definitely a god of contracts. Like what the treaty is, like the written down contract, that is what Mithras is. The oath-bound sort of relationship. It's not necessarily even a god, but it is often personified as that.
Yeah, and he's and at least in Zoroastrianism, he was the mediator between Ahriman and Ahura Mazda too.
Because because both the right hand and the left hand have to meet. That's the whole idea, right? Is that Chesed and Geburah, like I said, the fire and the water, they have to come together at Tiferet and synthesis and become the green ray, if you want to call it that. So yeah, there's something really interesting about all of this, and like there's a layer, I think, because Tracy was well aware of this. I mean, it's obvious to me. She was a very skilled magician and like more skilled than me, and so she was able to sort of like encode her words like all good magicians are able to do many times. But then she also would pull back the veil, which is what I find very interesting about
I think she was probably the best decoder that I've ever seen.
I agree. Yeah,
in my research, the things that she could pull out of just any random music video, and she could explain all the details, and it just blew my mind every time.
Yeah, exactly. And just to like kind of tie onto that, the Baphomet and Mithras kind of swapping or dancing kind of they do back and forth. Joseph Hammer Purgstall found a quote genuflecting idol with Arabic engravings on the back, which read, "She is exalted, meet Consivia. I and our race were 7." And Consivia, I guess, was like a Greek god that was referred to by the Romans as Rhea.
Okay, yeah.
And Consivia means she who plants. So I'm not quite sure. That could kind of tie into like Baphomet's, where the Templars said that when they would pray to Baphomet or worship Baphomet, that he would make sure their crops grew. I think that could kind of tie in to Consivia.
Yeah, well, Consivia is like a mother goddess, like Kybele, Cybele.
Yes. And I think they kind of, so I think that Tracy was saying that like they shouldn't be syncretized, that they were separate gods that were like a lineage almost. Where like
who shouldn't be syncretized? I'm sorry.
Rhea and Ops, I guess. Like, because I guess like who was it first? That is it Kronos that killed his dad first, or
Oranos, and then who's broke out of Kronos.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, they're doing the same. There's the same mechanisms going on here, where the mother loves the son and helps the son overthrow the father, and then marries the son afterwards, and rinse and repeats.
Yeah, so like and then gets jealous of the son.
Exactly, and then that's where it leads to Appa Consivia, which is a festival for Ops, which is the she who plants, or plenty. Appa means plenty, Consivia means she who plants, so plenty of planting, I guess. But during this ritual, which there are two dates, I guess there was one in August. I didn't write it down because it wasn't as pertinent, but there's one coming up on December 19th, where during this festival, everyone would go out in the streets and get real messed up and get real drunk and whatnot, and then the tribute or the initiatory, whatever it would be like the male that was paraded around and was getting all the carnal pleasures, and then at the end of the festival they castrate them.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like it just makes me wonder like what was going on at that Mithras temple like back in the day. Like, what was this, like a similar sort of festival, or was this a completely different worshiping of a completely different deity?
I don't know as far as Mithras goes. I know there are certain degrees. It's very proto-Masonic. There's like our Statue of Liberty, like the bridegroom, where it's you were supposed to basically. I've heard two different interpretations. One of it was that it was like a killing of your ego to like ritually humiliate yourself, to dress as a woman, as a man. But then I think it was Twyman or somebody else that said that this was actually the bridegroom degree is where you are ritually married to like a child who dresses up as a bride, which I don't know. I have seen some Masonic pictures.
That makes me think of the D Malay.
What is that?
That's the Masonic youth group, the D Malay.
Okay.
So, and D Malay, more than likely that's named after Jacques D Malay, the 23rd and last Grand Master of the Knights Templar. So I have a good feeling that's what that's after, and I'm pretty sure that they have like a child marriage ceremony.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. It makes sense.
Yeah.
And I mean,
sorry, Zach, go ahead, please.
As far as the Knights Templar go, and relating it to like the ritual that is taking place in Genuflect, it does have the same end goal in destroying the universe.
Yes.
And they think they are basically doing like the righteous thing. And you can see in those, and you can see in those the meat coffers. There is the menorah with the 7 candles, which are the 7 planets, and you can see them blowing it out in one of those engravings, which is basically like we're gonna kill the planets to collapse the pillars of the world. Yep. And I mean, even I think you and Jin talked about the distinguished charity of meat, where she's tearing down the sun and moon. So
the peculiar love.
Basically. Yeah, peculiar love.
I won't bring up that guy's name, but it is interesting that there are modern cults that are sort of playing with this idea of the peculiar love in I find it all very literal. I think that's what I find is kind of like neo-Gnostic, or this, like, whether you want to call it like based on ancient Weewas Kanging stuff, or it's like modern channeled sort of Book of Urantia, but the Masonic / Gnostic version. I find it very literal. Like, yeah, you could take of that and like make something, you could do something ritually interesting with that conceptual framework, but like to stay stuck there, I guess that's where I have a hard time, is like you just treat it like conceptually, play with it maybe, but it's just an idea. It's not something to, you don't fixate on it.
I would even almost say it's like these rituals are meant to be worked out in your mind. They're meant to be done in your head, not to be done in real life in the material.
100%. That's how Buddhism would treat it, or Tantra.
Yeah, because I would say it is like to have an understanding of basically, we're kind of talking about like left path stuff. Like to have an understanding of the left path, you need to walk yourself through the left path rituals, but not actually do them, because that would actually that would make you left path. Yes. By just working them out in your head, you're staying centered.
Yes, 100%. That's 100%. That's Vajrayana. That's Vajrayana. That's what Tantric Buddhism is. I mean, yes, there are ritual grammar elements, but yeah, for the most part, that's exactly what it is. It's working it out conceptually in your consciousness, understanding the sort of vices, sins, lusts,
exactly
to be also of your mind, but then also perhaps something else. But it gives you all the tools within that framework to deal with all of it.
Yeah, it kind of gives it, working your way through these rituals is kind of what gives you the knowledge of good and evil.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Sorry. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I totally agree. Sorry, Zach. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good. Genuflect. There is also a point at the end of the ritual, I guess, where there is a homunculus, like chimera like creature. Do you know what I'm talking about, Zack? Where he's telepathically communicating with Tracy like the whole time. She's not really sure. I guess not Tracy, it's her character Pamela, I think.
Pamela Aguilar or something like that.
They're communicating telepathically the entire time.
And she doesn't know it though.
Yeah, until like the very end, where she sees like some Frankenstein-like being. But then there was also, I think the ritual culminates in the birth of another like moonchild homunculus.
Yes.
That was, I think it was supposed to be Uranus, or like.
Yeah, I think it was Uranus.
Yeah, and that was supposed to be
like to start the cycle again, kind of.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the final. They're supposed to like, sexually defile this homunculus thing and then kill it, I'm assuming. And like as this was going on, the pillars were shaking, like there was all types of mayhem going on. The ground, there was an earthquake and things were falling from the sky and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's almost like the analogy of the breaking of the two pillars that hold up the world.
Yeah. And even that term plus ultra, it means, I think it means there's more beyond, which meaning like there's more beyond the pillars of Hercules.
I just want to add this really quickly, and you guys can make of it whatever you want. But I think that there's something really interesting with the Uranus, and Uranus is required if you apply modern astrology to the Yetziradic tree. It would be at Kether. Sometimes people will say it's at Dath, but I personally I prefer my attribution, to be honest. So Uranus, Kether. But it's a cyclical thing. So the some of the spheres can shift. So Uranus and Pluto can shift. Sometimes that they're at Kether and sometimes they're at Dath. So it requires that severing motion. That's what Uranus really does. It's that radical severance of the old cycle. So the old cycle must die or be severed through the ring of Uranus exploding or expanding outwards. And Uranus is the higher conception, not just of Mars. Sometimes I've heard astrologers say that Uranus is simply the higher expression of Mars, but it's also the higher expression of Jupiter at the same time. It's really both. So it's required to move through the cycle. So you see a lot of like the newer channeling cults, like there's the Book of Urantia, there's a million other ones, but a lot of them are very much about Uranus. Like they place a high emphasis on Uranus, and it's important in the theosophical idea of going into Aquarius as well.
Even in a classical cosmology, before outer space and the Hubble telescope, that like Uranus was basically the realm of the fixed stars, and it was kind of it was the dome over this whole thing. And I'm looking at this old Kabbalist, this old tree right now, and it's interesting that it associates Kether with the primum mobile and then Chokmah with the zodiac, which is more of like that classical cosmology, rather than attributing planets to it. Not that I think that's a bad thing, but
no. See, the interesting thing is I actually prefer the way you're describing it, like the way traditional the traditional stuff for Yetzirah
too.
Right, it does. But because we are told that those planets exist, whether they exist or not, they sort of have to be, if that's your cosmological map for the world or for the universe, you have to put them somewhere on the tree. Those are the places where they most closely go. Now, whether they are real or not real, I don't know. But I do think that they can fit, like Neptune and Chokmah. There's a relationship between like a gas giant that's not very dense. Well, that makes a lot of sense for Chokmah. It's the unmanifest cloud of wisdom. So it is like
sometimes what gives me some doubt about space sometimes is that all the planets that we've found they're like so perfectly in line with the gods that they describe. Like Saturn is this old time god, and Jupiter's the biggest one of all, and that's and it's like, I don't know. And every space mission that we see just seems so rich, so ritualistic.
Yeah, and all the names that they use too.
Every single name, it's insane.
Well, why don't they ever show us real video? Why is every video about space AI.
Right?
Exactly.
Weird.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm not against the idea of there being space. That would make for a more exciting cosmos.
Right?
But
Exactly.
It's just, and it's hard to, just the foundations of NASA. Everyone knows
Right.
Operation Paperclip, and then also we had
Not everybody.
Crowley and Parsons, and it's like, man.
Yeah,
Well,
what was it?
Sorry,
What
Zach.
was the Parsons? What was his lab called?
JPL.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, it's Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, it blows my mind. Like they have this dude going out, and what didn't he go out into the desert with what's his name? And they
Hubbard,
did
Hubbard.
and they did the Liber 47 ritual or whatever.
Yeah,
49.
Babalon working.
Yeah, and I'm just like, this is the guy that started up the space thing. Like these are the guys.
Yeah,
this is what we're all going off of. I'm like, okay, guys, sure, if that's what you guys are going with.
It's very. You've probably heard Twyman talk about this too, but like the symbolism behind, like the moon mission was basically like the birth of the anal homunculus, because a rocket is obviously very phallic shape.
Which is what I always go back to, that the lamb alien guy that Aleister Crowley drew.
Yeah.
That is, if you go and look at that photo, that is the depiction of the anal birth of the homunculus.
Really?
That's what that is. That's the head coming out of the anus. That's
interesting. Well, yeah, that whole moon mission, like the moon is thought of, as an asshole, basically. You call it mooning someone when you when you show them your ass. So yeah, and it's Apollo 11, and apparently Crowley loved that number because he thought it was like two penises next to each. I don't know. I think he just loved gay sex and came up with a bunch of mystical reasons.
He built a framework around gay sex.
Yeah.
Well, which, I mean, hey, you do that, but.
Well, I want to say this about the Babalon working, is that having read Liber 49 like a million times now to do my like Anna Daughter series, the way we understand it in Tantra could not be more different. It's very clear that they were like Qlipoth worshippers. Like they really loved the tree of night, you could call it. Like that's their tree. But really, all of the stuff that they're talking about is rectified. I'm not using that as a pun, but it's all rectified at the moon. It's all rectified at Yesod. Like all the paradoxes that they say, even 11, that's rectified at Yesod as well. So depending on, again, how you count, do you count upwards or do you count downwards? So there's something really interesting with that, and like the moon daughter, and not just the moon child, because the moon child is a more broader idea of all. It can also be like the Horus. It can also be like.
Have you read that as well by Crowley? The moon child?
I've read most of Crowley's stuff, but like I honestly find it like funny, and then but also very Kabbalistic, because it's clearly not always him writing, right? Like there's clearly a lot of books that are written by other magicians, other people that have just signed him, just like a pseudo Solomon. So I think it's really funny because it has like all his favorite things have, or all his favorite spheres and favorite conceptual ideas, they have a very feminine, real, if you know the metaphysics of it, it's actually feminine. He's talking about, like, I think you're right, Zach, he liked the 11 because of that. But if you understand what 11 is, yes, it's a paradox. Mm-hmm. But in Tantra, what do we say? The consort resolves all paradox. 1 is not a prime number, but 2 is. So you can have a prime mover, but the prime mover can never create the world. It has to be in 2. That's the lowest prime number. So there's something really interesting about what the framework he's laying out. And then there's also the idea of the epinoia of Nuria. So the idea of the daughter archetype for Yod-Heh Vav-Heh is that the angel Eleleth tells her that so she goes to the angel, who is considered to be one of the watchtowers. I forget which direction he's appointed and which watchtower is his. But anyway, she goes to him, and she says, "Look, the archons are threatening to rape me, and like, what are you going to do about it? You're supposed to be like the representative of God here, and I'm supposed to be God's like favored daughter. So like, what are you going to do about it?" And so Ella tells her that the archons never raped Eve, which is what the archons had told Nuria, and the archons cannot also rape you. You cannot be defiled by lies. Is basically the parable.
Okay.
So it's like it's all so even in the Gnostic Gospels, even in some of the Ophite texts themselves, it's saying that it's largely conceptual. Like what the archons are like our misperceptions of reality, rather than what they can even tell us or what we perceive them to be telling us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Even just Crowley in general, I've read some of his stuff. I'm not a fan of him really. It blows my mind how much of an influence he seems to have. I really do not understand it.
Yes. How does he? How do we have Jay-Z with a hoodie that says "Do what thou wilt"?
Yeah, and
could we just make that make sense for me real quick?
Oh my god.
Well, he's he's connected to the Nubians, so and like Brother Panic and all these sort of black spiritualists that have mixed with Nation of Islam, Scientology, and Thelema. There's a whole that's a whole
what a group subsection. Of people.
Yeah, right. It's an eclectic group.
It was like the worst 3 cults I've ever heard.
So
they're up there, that's for sure.
I mean, really though, he was just a junkie that loved gay sex. He hated women. He abused like every person in his life, basically. I think one of his wives killed himself or something. I don't know. I've heard that. And even like his poems and his art is just, it's dismal. It's not good at all.
No, I agree with you. I think you have to look at Crowley as being a parafictional character almost. Like his whole mythology is about the sort of what has been layered over time. It's not really about who he is, who he's said to be, who he says he is. It's literally just a character that they've invented and then added to.
Yeah.
Right? That's really who he is.
He was also like a Marilyn Manson times 100 of his time. Like these people thought he was the wickedest man in the world, and
wasn't it one of his nicknames was the Wicked One?
Exactly. And so I think that has to do with a lot of it. A lot of people are kind of attracted to that like edgy,
100%
edginess to it, but
which also like kind of which kind of ties to the story of Mithras and Mithraism. Oh my God, where it's like this male born from a rock hates women, which it also makes me like, okay, to kind of like roll this back and pull it back to Genuflect. It reminds me of kind of how Bloomberg is and how he acts, and it makes me think that like Bloomberg didn't just like stumble upon this Mithraeum temple. He didn't like just like randomly come upon it when he was trying to build his new building, but like he knew that it was there because I think they found it in the 50s. On the Bucklebury house site was where they were tearing down this old house, and they found this Mithraeum underneath of it. And they needed to move it, so they moved it up a couple blocks, and then years later, like probably 30, 40 years later, I guess this was only like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, Michael Bloomberg bought that original plot, and that's where he put the building, which Genuflect is based on, the Bloomberg Place, or it's now known as Bloomberg London.
Yeah, and it's in that Superman diamond shape, right?
Exactly. It's in the diamond. And I think it's. I mean, if you were to look, just looking at the building, like take Tracy's work out from this, and just look at what the building does and what it's constructed to do. It's meant to harvest data.
Yeah, it's like a smart building, right?
One big smart building, but in Genuflect, the building it's not harvesting data, it's harvesting your bodily fluids.
Exactly.
So it's it's still doing the like a similar. I would almost even like consider like your data is like a bodily fluid. Your wasted data, like all of
I think so.
The nonsense that you go through on your phone, that's all like extricated after the fact. It's all after it's done with, you get rid of the data. Well, they're the ones that come in and take it after you're done with it. Just like if you were taking a pee. Oh, I'm done with this. Now the urinal gets it.
The thing that this novel really made me want to learn is how to turn pee into gold. And I really
it definitely made me think that there's something
like,
to it.
What is the process of doing this if it's possible? Because I don't see why I'm just peeing for free, you know.
Oh, and just one more thing to tack on that. Whenever they found the Mithraeum, there were 3 different busts in the Mithraeum. There was a bust of Mithras, there was a bust of Mercury, and there was a bust of Hades. And I don't know what you guys make of that, but I just wanted to put it out there that these 3 were found there commingling.
Well, Mercury is kind of Baphometic, right?
Yep.
Percent
Alchemical.
But I mean, I guess if we go back to the Knights Templar, Baphomet, I think Baphomet itself, herself, himself, whatever, is really just like
They're a they.
Yeah, a they. Caesar.
Yeah, there we go.
But it was basically just like a chimera, like a big combination of just a bunch of different gods, especially gods that were viewed as negative, I guess. It almost seems like a group of like edgy kids figuring out like the most offensive beings and putting them into one. I mean, obviously they had a more complex reasonings behind it. But
no, I think you're onto something there. That's kind of what it seems like. It's like they found and of all of the most transgressive gods and goddesses at the time, and they just pushed them all into one.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's Azazel and Lilith, like the 2 primordial serpents that were separated by God. And then there's Azazel, who's supposed to be like the intermediary so that Lilith and Samael can unite. And then there's also Kybele, who I don't know who's in there. And then you can also see like the Pan influence as well. And plus, I mean, who was it? Crowley said that Baphomet was Mithras too. So
yeah.
I don't even know what to make of it. It gets very syncretic and confusing.
Yeah, that's
purpose. To be honest with you, I really do, because I think there's a clear. I mean, I practice tantra, so I obviously think that's the best. So I think that we have it laid out properly. That's just my opinion, but I think that it's deliberately confusing and deliberately syncretic, like overly.
Well, and Kybele and Mithras are connected too, I believe, at least from what I've heard from Twyman. I believe this is what she said, is that Kybele's son was Attis, who she thinks was also Mithras, who I think they were like lovers, but then Attis found another woman, so Kybele
got jealous.
Got jealous and castrated him at their wedding, and he bled out, and she felt so bad about it or whatever. And so this may be why Mithras hates the race of women.
There you go. There we go.
Which makes sense to me, but I'm not sure.
I've heard this, like exactly what you're saying, Zach. I've heard it from Robbie, like a similar version of like the Attis Mithras being linked. I think that's very old.
I think I even have like on my Twitter, I have a little clip of Tracy explaining that.
Yeah, they wear the same Phrygian cap, you know.
So I agree that there is an element where there is a syncretism that is normative, like that you could say is like, or it's like a chronology, like you can say this has existed for like since the original cult. And then there's been all this like overlay. Some of it's good and some of it's bad. And so I think that they do that on purpose so you cannot always discern or define the contours of what the real thing actually is. That's just my opinion, but that's what I sort of think is that they you see this a lot in Afrosyncretic religions as they are described in like more left-hand path occult circles. They will overly syncretize the characters. I think they are mappable. Like, I think you can apply them to other pantheons and other cosmologies in a way that is logical and probably is more original. But if you do it in a sloppy way, you lose the meaning of both the things. You lose the original meaning, and then you also lose the syncretized meaning. So I think that there's a caveat that people have to be clear that just because things purport to be like two things purport to be alike does not necessarily mean that they are.
Yeah, no, you're right. And this is why it's so confusing. There are obviously some beings, some gods that you could make a pretty one-to-one comparison, like Yahweh and Zeus. It's it's pretty clear. Or like Prometheus and the serpent. Some people say the serpent isn't the same thing as Satan. I don't know, but that seems pretty clear to me too. And I'm trying to think of who else, but
yeah, I think a lot of like the syncretism that they do is honestly, it's like to keep out the low IQ riffraff. Like if you can't manage your way around all of these different frameworks and jumping from this one to back to this one to now a third one and jumping through all different things, you need to understand this first framework, then you need to understand the second one, then you need to understand the third one, and then you can start piecing them all together. And I think that's what they're doing. This is like a way to hide the transgression. They're just like using old gods to like, oh well, you guys don't know what that god was worshipped for, so like we're gonna do the actual things that they were worshiping it, and we're gonna tell you that you're supposed to worship them in a different manner.
That makes sense. That also sort of explains like a lot of these conspiracy people, they have a conception that all of the people running the world are like Satanist. And that's just not the case. No one, if anything, they are going back to these old like Titanic forces like Mithras, which makes way more sense. The only people that are Satanists are like scammers for the most part, or
or edgy kids. I think that's kind of a lot of it.
That is a huge part of it,
because that's what I just noticed that from like when I went to Skankfest and just walking around there, and I'd saw probably 5 different people that had t-shirts with Baphomet on them. And then was
it like from a band, or was it just straight up Baphomet?
One of them was like the Church of Satan Baphomet.
Okay.
Like their logo. The other ones were, I think they were all bands.
Yeah. See, I have some like metal t-shirts with, I wouldn't say Baphomet, but there's like demonic thing, but that's basically kayfabe amongst like most of these.
They're just trying to be edgy. They're trying to be different.
Besides maybe the 90s Norwegian black metal where they were burning down churches. They were
pretty real about it.
Yeah.
I will say this about Satanism. Sorry, Zaki. You can go. I promise I will be short. Is that I think this is how I've come to understand Satanism, as in like the more occult way, not the normie conspiracy hard sort of framing. I understand Satan as being the oppositional force to whatever god you worship. So if you worship Ahura, whatever is the antinomian version of that, or not even the antinomian version, but just like the rebellious angel, that's Satan. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not necessarily a cosmological figure who is the exact opposite of God. Like it's just a whatever
He's the adversary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like Thor and the serpent. It's like it's Shiva and his own mind. It's Vishnu and the Asuras. It's whatever is in opposition to the gods' like desires or whatever.
Yeah, that's exactly why I tweeted the other day about Zoroastrianism being like a satanic version of Hinduism, just to like dumb it down, because it's the opposite. Not, I don't want to oversimplify it, but it's Ahura worship basically, and they demonize the devas.
It's so interesting that you brought that tweet up, because I always think about it whenever we discuss, because this was a really interesting tweet, and I know that you have a much more nuanced sort of take on it, but you're right. You're in the distillation of what you're saying in a tweet. You're right. It is sort of you could almost say it's the inversion, but they don't consider it inversionary. But then you could also say, like, did Zoroaster say to worship the Asuras, the 7 rays, as they appear in your own consciousness or your own internal battlefield? That's more what he was saying. But then he was also like, you can worship X, Y, and Z Deva. And he prescribed, there was a whole ritual list, supposedly, of like certain ones that he was like, okay, this can be part of the state cult, but we don't want people to worship like just like any crossroads demon or like whatever. Like it all should be brought into sort of this more non-theistic, but maybe you could also say like
secular.
There is an element of that. There's an element of that with especially like the later Zoroastrianism, where they were like, we want to bring everything back into the sort of the city-state cultic worship. Like what is prescribed has to be prescribed from the priests. It's not just like where you want. So
yeah,
there's something interesting about that.
Well, I guess what I didn't mean by like a satanic Hinduism is they didn't see the Ashuras in the same way that the Hindus did, as evil beings, and then they're like, let's embody that. That's, I think they thought it was more Gnostic, where they thought the Devas were just like deceptive and archontic. But even the like the Gathas and the Avesta, those two eras of Zoroastrianism were very different, because in the Gathas, there's no like religious, it's more of a philosophical text. There's there's not really many beings mentioned in it or any rituals. It's very just philosophical and just aligning yourself with either like Ahura Mazda, which is like the force of like progress, and I think that's what it translates to, is like forward thinking, like Promethea, and and Angramenu was like the force of like retardation, basically devolution.
100%. Interestingly, that not all Buddhism, but tantric Buddhism does think of the devas in almost this exact way. Is the devas are like a de-evolved consciousness. Like, yes, it's a higher birth, but it's much more limited than a human life.
Well, isn't that why like the Buddha, he claimed that like a birth in the human realm is the best rebirth of all, because the gods are all like enamored with power and clinging onto it and holding onto it, whereas in the human realm you have more room for growth and evolution.
Yeah, you get to choose every day of your life what you're going to do with this life. I mean, obviously within the parameters of reality and society. Whereas in heaven, that is you are assigned your karmic role. It's almost like the angels in the book of Enoch. It's like they are told by God, like, you don't have free will, you don't have choice. This is how you were made.
Yeah, that's a very Islamic understanding of angels too, is they don't have any free will. They're just more of extensions of Allah. But obviously in like Christianity, that's not the case, because we have a third of them that rebelled against Yahweh. So.
Well, they obviously were capable of some kind of degree of choice.
And I also think it's interesting that it was 1/3 of fallen angels, which would be 33%.
Yeah, exactly.
Just putting that out there. Just curious.
And the 2/3, if you 2 divided by 3, that's 666. So that's interesting too.
And dude's name that we forgot earlier, Randall Carlson.
Randall Carlson.
Oh, I have.
There it is. That's the guy.
It's so funny because I talked about him on another episode where we were talking about Vajra and how I think it was with Grubb. I can't remember, but it was with someone. We spoke extensively about Randall Carlson. So I apologize to Randall. Not that Randall will ever come on this show, but
Hey, you never know. You never know.
Well, I don't think that. I think I'm a little too metaphysical, we'll say, for Randall. But no, I think I understand it to be more, as you both know, and I've said a million times, it's just conceptual for me. Vajra is real. Like I know what that is. It's like that's the path, the lightning sword. That's like the sword of Moses. Like I get it. I get what it is. It's like conceptual. It's also spiritual, but it's not just like, yeah, could there be Tesla energy or whatever that you can create Vajra? Sure, I do believe that.
Ether.
Yeah, either networks and all of that, and like either conductors and giant Tesla coils. Sure, like yeah, let's do it. Tartaria 2.0. I mean, let's rock and roll. But I just think that I also can treat it conceptually, where it's like, okay, yeah, like I don't know if that's really real, but maybe.
Yeah, tantra is interesting. I want to learn more. It's just that it's so secretive, and you're supposed to find a guru to give you permission to do certain things, and it's like it's not easy to find in the West, in America, where I'm at.
I will say this is that anyone can do Tara, white Tara, green Tara, white Tara.
I've done that.
Can do that. Anyone
and the Vajrasattva.
Yeah, everyone can do Vajrasattva. Everyone can do Vajrasattva. Everyone can do Vajra Guru. So like Guru Rinpoche.
I did see the Vajra Yogini, and I was told do not do that.
I don't know if I'll mention it off air or something about that, but they're for everyone else. So for people listening, yeah, that's not for you. But definitely not. It's too powerful. It's honestly too powerful. It's like that's like a nuke. Like, are you ready to use a nuke? Probably not.
And I mean, that's why these things are kept secret. I mean, one is just for the preservation of the knowledge, so it doesn't get,
I mean, that one in particular
doesn't get degraded and corrupted. Yeah, but the second is like a lot of these things can drive you crazy.
It literally is like one of the consequences of fucking up that sadhana is death or madness. So
yeah, and you do need a guru there to ground you, because it's very
it's almost
very
it almost sounds like a heavy trip.
Yeah, like a trip sitter.
Yeah, that's what it's reminding me of.
Yeah, that's you absolutely need someone to orient you, like a guru to orient you into the path. That's a big idea, I would say, like especially in, well, not just, interestingly, this is not just Vajrayana, but also in Sikh religion, so Sikh. They have almost no deities in their inner temple religion. It's all gurus. So you can tell where Dharma kind of broke off and branched and said, okay, we prefer the devas, we prefer the guru, or we prefer whatever else. But you can see that there's like this dialectical like thinking or this discourse going on about what path is the most streamlined. And so Sikhs prefer the guru. Well, Tantric Buddhists also really place a huge emphasis on the guru. It's not the only path. There's obviously 4 pillars, but it is an interesting idea. So I think that's a great place to end it. Honestly, incredible conversation. Like you blew my mind. And I like my show, so for you guys to blow my mind, I'm pretty impressed, I have to say.
Yeah, I thought it went good.
Yeah, I think we brought some interesting questions to the table.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So why don't you both, in whatever order you want to go in, plug yourself on Twitter, any projects that you want to plug, or whatever final words you want to say. And thank you both so much. And obviously, you are sort of both of you are my erstwhile co-hosts, and I hope you will obviously come back whenever you want, and you're always welcome.
I think this was a good trio to do a podcast with.
Yeah, this was good.
100%.
We had some, because we all have like a different knowledge set, and it's nice to kind of bring them all together.
You want to plug your stuff first, Zach?
Just Zachary Schumar at Twitter. That's it.
Yeah, I have no projects that I want to plug right now, but at Third Eye Homunculi on Twitter.
Awesome. Okay, boys, this was an amazing. Probably, I don't know. I mean, I loved all my other Twyman episodes, but I think that it was a really good trio, and I think we all appreciate Tracy to a high degree, maybe. And so I think that it becomes, it's an interesting like discussion of what and who she was more, but it sort of takes on a life of its own because of how we discuss it. So I think that's really important. And
we're kind of talking about her material rather than her.
Yeah. I think her ideas, I have not come across any like modern occultists that discovered as much as she had. I feel
right, that had such a depth of knowledge.
Yeah, and she was great at decoding things and figuring things out, whether it's real or not, but she had some good theories at the very least.
Yeah, very interesting theories.
Yes.